So the Gustave Dore Tarot is a deck based on the works of Gustave Dore. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, just like everything. But he is famous for his woodcut and largely his works to illustrate Dante's Inferno. I initially got this deck specifically because I wanted to see how it would show up on video, especially, and we will figure out if I can manage to change my filters on the fly here. If I worked entirely in monochrome. And it does alright. Like, this is an interesting effect, which for the sake of the review I will immediately turn back off. But the problem I have, and I figured out that this is a relatively... bear with the flashing. I hope you weren't watching that as you were going to bed. I figured out this is a relatively common critique of Lo Scarebo decks, which is some of the imagery is a little shoehorned in. Like, this is a beautiful illustration for those from a Judeo-Christian tradition of the idea of strength, and the idea of strength being meekness or disciplined power, where it ties it back to the idea of Daniel in the lion's den. This Eight of Wands, referencing the myth of Samson, or I should say the legend of Samson. Wouldn't that be a better tower? I mean, it's things happening quickly. It's not the worst. But there are a few like that. You know, Nebuchadnezzar as the King of Pentacles makes sense. That's not a bad Six of Cups. Should this be the Ace of Wands? Is that a good illustration for a new, emotional or spiritual beginning? Anyway, and it's not necessarily that my every critique of this was accurate. And I will be the first to tell you, I'm not an expert on the artwork. And some of these, like this for the world, gorgeous. That's a wondrous interpretation. But every now and again, I just found myself going this card or that card doesn't hit that well. If it speaks to you, I wouldn't hold back for sure. Just like in my review of the Black Tarot, I apologize for these not being in order. I read with this a few times before I came to my conclusions on it. And part of my conclusion was, for the sake of the video, it's better to keep them in order. Here's a good example. This card of the wheel showing gambling behind a gal's back. I'm lost as to how that represents the usual interpretations of the wheel, which is very much a what's up must come down, as above so below type card. In certain situations, there just wasn't imagery from the artist that set up for these things very well, because they're taking his existing works and fitting it to a tarot deck. They're not necessary, it's not the same as an indie artist these days making works specifically for the purpose. I didn't check. I guess I assumed that the artist is passed away and that these are all public domain works. I'm pretty sure they are. But I should validate. I'll put it in the description if I'm wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. That's the other thing too, is the effect here. It was very specific. It's the other thing is, like, here's another example. This example of the hanged man being an angel descending. Yeah. I remember I looked up this artwork. I can't remember exactly what the root image of it was. It's a beautiful deck and a beautiful conglomeration of art in general. I definitely feel like I got my money's worth going through and looking at it. But certain things just don't click. And this just didn't click in terms of the actual reading. It's a title card. I'm also at a season, I should acknowledge my own bias here, where I'm preparing to move. And anything that's not hardcore the thing is moving on along. So my reviews are necessarily far more critical. I hope this helps you learn what you're getting into, if this is a deck you've been interested in. Until next time, friends, in balance and power.